Good evening everyone. مساء الخير للجميع. لو سمحتوا كمان يعني اللي محتاجة ترجمة لأنه الجلسة هتكون بالعربي والإنجليزي. So it's important to have the translation ready. الآن نبدأ الجلسة بخصوص اليمن. الجلسة عنوانها اليمن عند مفترق الطرق واليمن دائما لا تتوقف عن إدهاشنا يعني.
So we shall start this session, Yemen at Crossroads, and of course there are always new things emerging in Yemen. This session will focus on the prospects for a political process in a transforming region. This session will host three guests, Dr. Shaya Al-Zindani, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Expatriate Republic of Yemen, His Excellency Grundberg, UN Special Envoy for Yemen, and Dr. Abdulaziz, founder and chairman of Gulf Research Center. So we start with an introduction from Mr. Majid Al-Madhaji, Chairperson, Center for Strategic Studies. Hello everyone, we're glad to welcome you in this session organized by DohaForum in collaboration with Sana Center. We're so happy to have this partnership at DohaForum, and we hope that this session will really find the prospects, and welcome to you all. So I would like to say that the changes in Yemen are immense, but of course they are taking another direction after Gaza war. This direction will create a number of or will have a number of repercussions and consequences, but how will the discussion take place, what interaction will take place, we will wait and see. I would like to note that in Yemen, usually we do, or we've been doing a problem since several years. We deal with the country according to the current trend and not according to the conflicts taking place. So everything is based on the roadmap. Another time, everything is based on what's happening in Red Sea, but now it's Hadramaut and Mahra. But all of those dossiers are interlinked. They are all linked to one country, a country that has different problems that are still unsolved. And I believe that the discussion will focus on those topics. I will leave the floor to my colleagues. I leave the floor to Maysaa and the guests. Thank you. So now we will start our discussion. We will start with you, Dr. Shaya. 2 years ago, there was a talk about a roadmap, and there were some members in the government have talked about this roadmap. They said it is not part of the negotiations. They were so upset about it, and they said that some of the elements do not comply with the agenda of the cabinet. What happened after 2 years? Was the cabinet capable of putting a negotiation plan? Is there any different opinion about this plan now after 2 years? Thanks a lot, Ms. Maysaa. I'm happy to be with you here today, and I would like to thank Mr. Magid. Of course, I would like to comment on that, and as Mr. Magid said in his introduction, in Yemen we work on consequences and not on the causes. I believe that the root causes in Yemen are so deep, and they are linked to the social, economic and historic past, and so all the problems in Yemen and all the facts they're facing are due to continuous conflicts. There might be time intervals, long or short, between one and the other, but they are one after the other. And sometimes we forget about the actual history in Yemen. And sometimes we find that every solution have the seeds to a new conflict, to a next conflict. Why? Because the solutions are not scientific, are not objective, and do not approach the problem in a correct way. That's why I believe that all what we're witnessing today is a result of the deterioration that happened in the structure of the Yemeni state. Yemen was still under development. It was vulnerable. It needed institutional structure. Legislations are not strong. Rule of law is not there. And so the concept of power of authorities is not well defined. And if it was defined, it is not put into effect. It is not practiced on the ground. It does not reflect a strong Yemeni state that fulfills the needs of all Yemeni people. And that's why we come to these consequences. As to the roadmap, it is well known that the Yemeni government and the Presidential Council have always been a supporter of peace. We want peace, but we want that not from a weak position, but because we believe that peace is our responsibility as a cabinet. And of course, the cabinet aims at achieving or fulfilling the needs of the Yemeni people. In war, we do not make any victory. We do not here achieve anything, no matter what was the result. That's why we went to Kuwait, and in Kuwait, I believe that everybody knows that we were there for more than 110 days talking, discussing, hoping that we reach a solution. And we went to Kuwait under the umbrella of the UN Resolution 2216, and also the references have made it clear that the UN resolution would impose here certain items on the militias, starting from Article 1, 3, 4, 5, and we were mainly focusing on Article number 5, which is about the political solution. But unfortunately, the UN resolutions were marginalized, and everybody said there's no military solution, but a political solution. Okay, but what kind of political solution? There were militias back then that are weak, and everyone was in Hodeidah, and everybody was calling for the political solution. But what is this political solution based on? Have all the problems of the world been solved according to political solutions? Always the more powerful dominates. The relations of states, relations, intergovernments are all based on power. But no power was being able to be imposed there in order to fulfill the needs of the Yemeni people. And the greatest proof is that is the SOCOM agreement, when there were the legislative or the legitimate forces in Hadithi. If we talk about peaceful agreements, who are the partners of peace? Are they the Houthis? Are they partners for peace? What is their political vision? What is their vision about the future of Yemen? This is a very important topic that we have to discuss. More than that, how would you deal with a group that believe that they have the divine right to control, and that God have assigned them to control this area for a certain ideology? This is another matter. So they believe that they are against the state or the people of Yemen because of a matter of presence and not that of politics. So the problem has not been well diagnosed, and as a result, we have reached this situation. We agreed on the roadmap. We agreed on the agreement before that, but the roadmap has items, and there are concessions to be made by the government. But unfortunately, those militias did not seize the opportunity of this initiative, and they went to the Red Sea attacks and to attacks of different ways. That's why in the board board or the leadership board, nobody was against the roadmap. It was approved, and this was through efforts through Oman and KSA. But the roadmap was not here announced officially. Did the government receive a copy of the roadmap?
ممكن توضح لنا هذه النقطة؟ هل استلمت فيها نسخة نهائية من خارطة الطريق أو مسودة على الأقل؟
This was a draft, and I believe that the government was not put in the loop back then. When there's a mediator, of course, you should give him the chance to play his role. He cannot work independently. So when at KSA and Sultanate of Oman, the colleagues told us about the items of this plan, we agreed on it. I understand that the situation is unstable and not very clear in Hadramaut, but to what extent do you think that it will impact the negotiative status of the government? We cannot talk about negotiations unless we agree how will that be. Negotiations happen gradually. When people agree on negotiation, we can talk about the mechanisms, ways, strategies, and plans of negotiations. So far, we didn't start with the first step, so we can't talk about all of the negotiation process. 2 or 3 years ago at the government, there was a negotiation team that was formed, but who will it negotiate with? I don't think we have a problem with negotiating. We are ready. We have the capacities and resources to do that and to work in different circumstances. So you have a negotiative team that is ready. Yes, this negotiative team has representatives from different entities, and this is a team is supervised by Dr. Abdullah Al-Ali. I believe that he is from the Presidential Council. The team is there. The team was formed, but the problem is, what shall we negotiate about? There's no partner to negotiate with. Thank you.
We'll move to you, Your Excellency Hans, Mr. Hans, and I'm asking about since the truce in April 2022. There are many regional actors involved in Yemen as mediators. So how can the UN handle this situation?
I think mediation is I think we have 4,000 people here in the DohaForum, or 5,000, I don't know how many, and I've seen so many panels that claim that they are about mediation, and I think there needs to be a careful concept of what mediation actually is. Mediation requires impartiality, and there are very, very few actors or stakeholders that can uphold impartiality. So when you have regional member states who try to support conflict resolution, this is also in line with their own national interests. So what you see in Yemen right now is a coordination and attempt by the regional countries surrounding Yemen to try to support Yemen in stabilizing the situation there. And that is in support of the mediation that is run at this moment from the United Nations. That generates a fairly complicated environment for any mediation, because it means that you have a number of stakeholders that get involved into the conflict resolution. And it can only work if the main mediating body, in this case the United Nations, has well-established relationship and trustworthy relationship with these stakeholders and remains informed about what these stakeholders are up to. And that, I can say, if you compare to a number of other conflicts, in Yemen it still works. I am very well informed by the region, by the Omanis, by the Saudis, by the Emiratis, and by all the other regional entities about what they are trying to do in terms of supporting the United Nations role in its mediation efforts. But obviously, in a conflict such as the one in Yemen, it has gone from being a national issue to becoming a regional issue, and today it's multifaceted. It has even global consequences. The conflict in Yemen is now having global consequences, which means that the numbers of stakeholders multiply as the conflict remains unresolved. So there I come back, and I'm sorry if my answer becomes a bit lengthy, but I will come back to what Majed just said and what Dr. Shaya just mentioned as well, and I think we're saying the same thing. And that is that unless you try to address Yemen from a comprehensive manner, unless you try to accept the complexity of the internal dimension of the Yemeni conflict with the regional dimension and also the security, the regional security and the global security aspects of the conflict, unless you are able to address all these issues from a comprehensive manner without trying to interfere them one with another, but understanding them in a critical manner, in a serious manner, and address them from a comprehensive space. Unless you're able to do that, you will see a situation where the different elements will either reinforce the conflict or will try to help the conflict to be resolved. We have been in a space for the last 2 years where the regional escalation that we've seen, the destabilization in the Middle East that we've seen for the last 2.5 years have a great level of negative impact on the conflict resolution inside Yemen. Right now, we see an opportunity where the regional de-escalation can provide an opportunity for Yemen, but alone it won't help. There is a need to address also, as we see in the very sensitive development in Hadramaut right now, but also in the other elements of the internal situation in Yemen, unless you're able to address those matters as well and the grievances that we see inside Yemen that have been there for decades or for longer than that, unless you're able to address those issues as well in parallel, you will only address symptoms and you will never come to the core in the conflict resolution.
Okay, there were many criticism about the roadmap and what the leaked information from the roadmap, about the roadmap that some even key Yemeni factions like the STC, they criticized it and they said they were excluded from the whole process of negotiation, and the terms of this roadmap don't serve their interests. So how the UN can guarantee the inclusion in any peace agreement in Yemen?
Well, first, you have to be absolutely clear. The roadmap, there is a good reason why the STC say that they haven't seen it. It's because it hasn't been presented officially to the parties yet. So if they say they haven't seen it, yes, I sincerely hope they haven't. And for the last, I think we presented it physically to both sides back in January 2024, before the conflict in the Red Sea escalated to a level where the negotiations weren't able to continue. But until then, the actual roadmap, the draft roadmap that the United Nations holds, hasn't leaked. I have had numerous member states, powerful member states, permanent members of the Security Council have come to me and asked to get a copy of the roadmap, and neither of them has gotten to have it. Google it and try to find a copy of the roadmap. You will not find it, because it's a small circle in the United Nations Office of the Special Envoy that holds the draft. We were able to have one session with each side, one session with Ansar Allah, and one session with the government of Yemen in terms of reading of the roadmap. One. And then the situation in the Red Sea escalated. I think it was in the beginning of January 2024 when there was a volley of exchange between the United States and the Ansar Allah in the Red Sea, which then led to a situation where the negotiations on the roadmap were not able to continue. So I think that there's a lot of discussions, a lot of preconceived views about what the roadmap is. But if you really want to know what it is, look at my interview with Al-Sharq Al-Awsat, I think it was from December 2023. I go through it in fairly good detail, and there's nothing secret about it. The roadmap contains elements that Yemen is in need of. Yemen, if you want to resolve the situation in Yemen seriously, you need a ceasefire. It's absolutely necessary to have a ceasefire. That is inside the roadmap. And that ceasefire needs to be defined in a very serious manner. Secondly, you need a political process. Unless the parties start to negotiate with one another about how to resolve the political dimension of the conflict and how to come to a solution of a political process, or to get into a political process that delivers solutions, then Yemen will remain unresolved. So the aim of the United Nations in that end is to set up a structure for how to get to those negotiations. That's in the roadmap as well. Then if you do want, during that period that goes on, if you want to be serious about also making results during that period, there are a couple of economic matters that needs to be dealt with that are deeply political. And these are related to the concept of payment of salaries for once, but there are other economic issues that needs to be resolved while you're negotiating on trying to come to a political settlement or to a political process. So all of these elements, you can call it a roadmap, you can call it what you want. If I ask any Yemeni, they will say, if you ask, do you need a ceasefire? They will say, yes, we need a ceasefire. Do you need a political process that is inclusive? Yes, we do need a political process that is inclusive. Do you need to resolve some of the economic issues inside Yemen that are on the table right now? They will say yes. Then call it a roadmap or call it whatever you want. Define it in any way you want. You will need all these matters. And that I'm certain, you can't escape it. So either you go for it right now, and we are ready, as the United Nations, we're ready to help the Yemenis to negotiate this issue seriously, or you take a detour and you escalate and you go to another conflict, a round of conflict, which will not, according to my view, deliver any results. And then you will have to come back to the starting point where I was, basically delivering a ceasefire, delivering a political process, and delivering some of the humanitarian urgent issues on the table. So and all of this is fairly well defined and fairly well known to all sides. The question is whether there is willingness and seriousness in terms of how to approach the matter. Here I have to say that in my relationship with the government of Yemen and with Dr. Shaya and with the team of the government of Yemen, I've had a very strong and straightforward relationship in terms of knowing what is complicated, what is difficult for these negotiations to take place, but also in terms of what is achievable. And that is the type of discussion that needs to be continued.
In your recent visit to Oman, then you said that you've met some Iranian officials. Do you think that the regional situation now is more prepared for de-escalation in Yemen and for peace settlement in Yemen?
Yeah, if those of you who have followed me for the last couple of months, you will have seen that I've been fairly active. I've been visiting not only Oman for quite a number of times, mostly to have discussions with the Houthi chief negotiator, Mohammed al-Salam, but also with the Iranians. I met the deputy foreign minister, Taht Ravanchi. I met with the Iranian foreign minister, Araghchi, but I also had numerous discussions with the Omani officials. But I also went to Riyadh to sit on numerous occasions, meeting with the Saudis. I went to Abu Dhabi to sit with the Emiratis, and I obviously have had numerous discussions as well with Dr. Shaya and other members of the Presidential Leadership Council and the Yemeni government. And then I've clearly had several discussions with the permanent members of the Security Council and other international stakeholders. The common denominator of all these discussions is that all of these stakeholders that I enumerated prefer a negotiated settlement. Then the question is, what are they ready to offer and to put on the table to reach that negotiated settlement? That's where the challenges begin. But right now, they all prefer a negotiated settlement. None of those that I have enumerated want to see a return of full-time war. Obviously, I need the region to make results. So I need to have discussions also with the Iranians in this end. Are the Iranians ready to be supportive in terms of settling the conflict, supportive in order to settle the conflict in Yemen? They profess that willingness. Then I think, as always, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. And that is, in the end, where you come to when we have something concrete on the table and we can see whether the parties and the region and the international community are ready to support that level of concreteness in our negotiations. That's when we will know for sure. But that I can only know whether I discuss with them, and I need to continue those discussions.
Back to the local actors, can I ask you something? That Dr. Shaya repeatedly said there is no partner. There is no Houthis. The Houthis, they are not interested to be partner in any negotiation. What do you think here?
No, and let's be absolutely clear. The greatest damage that we've seen during the last 2.5 years is a complete erosion of trust. So what Dr. Shaya says, I understand. There is the level of trust within Yemen, but also from the region and from the international community has gone down to an all-time low. For any conflict resolution, this is a challenge. So I'm not underestimating that. I take these words seriously, and that you have to do as a mediator. So that I understand. And there is also, when I speak with several international members of the international community, they will say the same thing. They have no trust that a negotiated settlement will deliver real results. So what do you do in that end? Then I think you make sure that you negotiate solutions that are not based on hope or on hope for expected delivery. They have to be based out of quantifiable and verifiable solutions. Otherwise, the parties will never trust that the other side is ready to implement what they have said to implement. So you need to be very careful in this space now where we're in today in how you define the solutions, which will have to be defined in a slightly different way where we were in, I would say, September 2023, where there was a greater level of hope that the discussions that we had generated a spiral of greater level of hope, which we don't have today.
Okay, thank you. دكتور عبدالعزيز صقر يعني مر عامين من خارطة الطريق حصل فيها الكثير من الأحداث في المنطقة.
So it was 2 years after the conflicts in the region, since the undermining of the Iranian role, as well as the role of the militia, the Houthis, as well as classifying them as terrorist organization. Do you think this will affect the situation and how the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia will deal with the negotiation with the Houthis and ending the Yemeni portfolio? Good day, everyone. I don't think the United States, while classifying the groups as like the Houthis on terrorist list, will affect this because usually the power of this role will not affect the Houthi situation and role, but the United States interest. So this will have a direct relationship with the legitimacy of Yemen. And this is how we can reach a peaceful solution while avoiding the bloodshed as much as possible. We don't believe that this classification, once again, is useful. It is affecting the dialogue again, and it's not affecting the situation. Also, the military actions, the Israeli, the Americans, the British, they had specific goals, but it wasn't for changing the regime in Yemen. No, they were calling for changing the Houthis. But as a matter of fact, I cannot forget one day at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, at the State of Department, I've asked one of the U.S. officials, it was at the beginning of the conflict, I've asked them, if I told you the Yemen issue on the list, where is on the list? They say after 30. So the Yemen wasn't as a priority, the U.S. list. However, when the joint forces were near Hodeidah, Britain has taken a decision. So this was their position. They have opened the dialogue with the South to encourage the separation and to go. So it didn't take into consideration the Yemeni situation, and it didn't take the Yemen a safe Yemen. Please, for the English speakers, could you move to channel 2? Could you move to channel 2? Because we'll shift to channel 2. So the political escalation between the different factions, whether between the South or between the factions that has relationship with other parties. So those who will pay the price will be the people of Yemen, the Yemeni people. They will be the one that will die. So this is why we were avoiding escalation. And this is why they should support the legitimacy, the regime. But I believe that the current situation is to keep and to put an end to the escalation at the military level, use the negotiation, the mediation at the political level between different parties to reach a better solution. Yes, you have mentioned the paramount when you talked about the South. I believe the control of the government region was very important, maybe it's much more important than the real conflict. Yes, because it is a temporary event. Yes, this will raise a question. What's the nature of the relationship between Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and UAE, United Arab Emirates? Do you think the forces now that support the UAE has taken over the eastern part? So yes, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and UAE are partners in the alliance forces, and they have, of course, sacrificed a lot from this regard. But as a person who's interested in foreign affairs, I always believe that when the national interests prevail more than the regional one, the decision will be different, and the decision won't take into consideration the interest of everyone. For example, when Oman found a threat in the situation, they have changed because they don't want the Omani security to be affected in any way. So yes, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia that has 1,450 is a national security issue for them. It will affect their stability and security. So the Yemeni is going to be one Yemen. The Yemeni will be towards the United Nations to do a referendum maybe, to go back to before the unity. This is a relationship that affects the Yemeni people. They decide, the Yemeni people only, no one should intervene. But when external power will intervene to change the situation on the ground, this will be very dangerous because it will not end there. The non-governmental military forces, their danger in the Arab region is really huge. We've seen it in Iraq and other places, what they have seen. We've seen this destruction to Gaza. They're a group of people outside the central authority. They've decided to hold the weapon, and this is what happened. This is why we should focus on the return or put an end to the Houthi control over Yemen. I believe the process should be different than this one. The pathway should be different. However, if the goal is the separation, I think they have a different path. I believe the Yemeni people are exhausted from war and from this bloodshed. They're suffering a lot. They're suffering from this bad living and bad situation. Of course, we would have preferred to avoid war, and we would have preferred to keep the Yemen for the Yemeni people to decide and to deal with the situation. However, this is what happened, and we ask God for peace to prevail. Yes, we can say that the situation in Yemen has moved from the Houthi to other priorities. Yes, the Transitional Council has a military power that is externally supported by money, by equipment, by machines, by weapons. Of course, those who have the power want to show it to the others. For example, I believe the Europeans, when they have started to exceed or increase the military expenditure, they wanted to show it to others. So those who have power want to show it to the others that they're powerful, and they want to impose it on the ground. And this is where it's dangerous. When the military power is in an illegitimate way, in an unofficial way, in an unofficial position. And by the way, I believe the South is not under one control, one united control. I don't have the right to say to the South, people in the South, that they do not have the right for an independent state. No, there is a decision that should be taken by the Yemeni people. However, I can say that there is a council, and the representative of this council, I believe it would have been better to go back to this council to agree on the to the ruling system, to the authorities, to the rule of power, without imposing power on each other, because for those who use force will not succeed, will not see victory. Thank you. I can conclude this session. However, before I conclude, I want to welcome Dr. Abdullah Al-Alimi. Dr. Abdullah, do you have any comment on this roadmap? Dr. Shaya, to go back to what's happening, which is complicated. Do you think that the government can stay united and in cohesion? I know that this situation is still too early to know, but what do you think? I will go back to Mr. Abdullah. Thank you. I'm really happy and pleased to be with you in this event. And I would like to thank Sana'a Center, Mr. Majid, and the whole team. I'm really happy to listen to all of you, to listen to our friends concerning the updates at Hajamaut. I praise and agree on what Mr. Abdulaziz has talked about. I believe the legitimate government has passed through different destabilization, and I believe everyone was following up on what happened in 2018, 2019, 2020, after the council was formed in Shabwa and others, and Shabwa and other incidents also. Despite of all of this, there were efforts deployed, and there is a common point for everyone when it comes to the Houthis. They consider the Houthis as a threat for the state, and all of the political groups and all the political components are on a tight ground. They have one position towards the Houthis, and I believe this is the one common understanding that will help solve some of the problems that we're facing in the legitimacy. Also, there are allies and partners that are deploying efforts, and what happened in Hajamaut. And the principle that we have is that we cannot support or to stand with any party that want to impose their power with weapons. This is why there are efforts to control the situation. It happens in 2018, 2019, 2022, and in December 2025, the people in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia have deployed huge efforts, and inside the Hajamaut, they're trying to restore what happened. Our friends in UAE are playing a positive role also. This is a problem that happened. However, it will not affect the situation concerning the houses. It will not also lead to fragmentation concerning the methodology of dealing with the peace or war decision. So all of these incidents are happening, but we can overcome this problem. We are totally responsible, and the economic situation and of course this will not be implemented without the consensus of everyone. The only beneficiary is the Houthis, and we of course depend on the understanding of all the factions and all the authorities. Of course, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is trying to bridge the gap, and there is a positive role that UAE is playing hopefully we will reach a better solution and a balanced one. Thank you. Thank you. I would have liked the possibility to control the situation. Dr. Shaya. Everyone was surprised with what happened. I don't know if the government can control the situation as much as possible. Do you think there might be a solution? What happened is that the Leadership Council is an alliance. Everyone has its own power that impose their power on on Yemen. And of course, what we can say is that this will not affect at all our position from the Houthis. We have a position regardless of what happened. We have partners with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the UAE for their role. And of course, they will help us to overcome all obstacles. You know, the politics, they're witnessing different challenges. There's the economic situation, the social situation, the war also. This is affecting us and is making us face many problems. There is also this stabilization. This is imposing different challenges in this regard. So this is why we are optimistic. And we want the Leadership Council to be responsible. We want the government also to keep and preserve the unity of Yemen.
Mr. Hans, do you have any last word about the transformation? I mean, Yemen from the Houthis, they are a very strong regional actor in Gaza war, which affect the Yemeni war, and now there is like a shift of alliances, regional alliances in Yemen. Maybe we are going to witness it. So do you think this will help or serve the interest of or the UN mediation mission in Yemen?
No, it's a difficult question to answer, because I think the title of this session is well put. Yemen is at crossroads. Yemen has been at crossroads for quite some time, but it's very much in a crossroad right now. And to try to answer your question, I believe that coming back to my first point that I did in your first question, what is it that you need to do in order to address the situation in Yemen? You need to understand Yemen, and that is not an easy thing. Anyone here knows, anyone who follows Yemen knows that Yemen is a rich, complex country that has been suffering from conflicts way before even the Sada wars began. And so there are grievances in Yemen that go way back and that needs to be addressed. And they have not until today been addressed effectively. Then you have the regional and the global components that I mentioned earlier that have now complicated the conflict resolution in Yemen even further. So what I do think is necessary, and one final point that I would want to make to all the members of the international community, is to make sure that you remain engaged on Yemen. Yemen needs that level of engagement, but that engagement is not only single-handedly focused out of the let's take the example of the security lens that is right now the center of attention of any international member of the international community. They will look at Yemen out of the instability that Yemen generates from a more global perspective and will address Yemen out of that perspective. If you center yourself out of that perspective, the solutions will not be complete. And they will never deliver the solutions that Yemen needs. Yemen is in need of a comprehensive approach, but that requires serious engagement from the international community. It requires engagement that goes way beyond the mere concept of the concept of a proxy war, or the concept of terrorism, or the concept of insecurity in the Red Sea. It needs to go into the depth of what Yemen really is. And it's only through that level of engagement that the Yemenis themselves can be supported in developing solutions that they need and that they will have to define in the end. Because in the end, in the bitter end, or in the end, Yemen can only be resolved by the Yemenis themselves. And that's the basic line. But the engagement needs to be comprehensive. I leave it there. There's obviously so much more to say.
دكتور عبد العزيز طبعا أمن الخليج دائما هاجس.
Dr. Abdulaziz, the security of the Gulf is a huge concern. Many things happened in the past 2 years, and this has helped us reconsider our perspectives towards the Gulf, like the Israeli attack to Qatar and others. So, in your opinion, how the current situation in Yemen can affect the perspectives of Kingdom of Saudi Arabia about their security and their national alliances? Definitely, the maritime threats that the Houthis have imposed played a crucial role in affecting the situation at the economic, social, and security levels in the region. I believe that the external role won't affect the situation in Yemen, whether from the Israelis or British or the American one. What will change the Yemen is either the internal forces or regional powers. And this regional power and authority, if they consider the Houthis illegitimate and they're a group of people who assaulted the legitimacy in Yemen, they will practice their role, because the Houthis, one point, they want international recognition and they don't want anything else. If they get this recognition, they will justify many things, even the separation in the south, and they were able to call for about many details later on. So this is your last word. Yes, my last word is that the security of Yemen and the Gulf is an integral part. Without having a secure country in Yemen, whether on the borders of Oman or Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, or the land borders, or the Qaeda and ISIS members and other threats, this will affect the whole region. This is why the security of Yemen is affecting the whole region. But we are interested in their role, the external threats when Israel attacks and others. This is part of our security in the region. Thank you. Allow me to thank all the speakers and our participants and panelists. Thank you.